An engagement isn't important when you're the lesser child. Be happy we even raised you, my mother scoffed, her hand waving me off as though I were a stranger begging at her door. My dad sat beside her, silent, his eyes fixed on his tea like I wasn't worth a response. That line, those looks, burned into me. I carried them alone, the night of my engagement echoing like a hollow room no one cared to enter. Hi everyone, my name is Claire Monroe, I'm 27. And if you think you know how this story ends, stay tuned. Because what started with their silence turned into something louder than any words they'd ever spoken. Picture it, my tiny apartment balcony wrapped in fairy lights, my fiancé's hand trembling in mine as he slid the ring on my finger. Friends cheered, laughter filled the night, and yet, the absence of two people rang louder than any celebration. My parents didn't show. They didn't call. They didn't even send a text. And then, days later, the tide shifted. It was one photo. Just one. My new Tesla, gleaming white under the sun, captioned simply, "Hard work pays off." I hadn't meant to flaunt it. It was my pride, my independence, everything they said I'd never have. But to them, it was a siren. That evening, my phone buzzed. My father's voice, sharp and demanding, came through before I could even say hello. "Where did you get the money? Family meeting tomorrow. Don't be late." His tone wasn't curiosity, it was suspicion, control, almost anger that I dared to rise beyond the box they built for me. I stared at my phone long after the call ended, heart pounding. They had ignored my engagement, dismissed my happiness, erased my worth. Yet the moment they saw something shiny, something expensive, they suddenly remembered I existed. And that's when the spark lit in me. Because if they thought tomorrow's meeting was going to be another chance to belittle me, they were wrong. I had a plan. A surprise waiting in silence, ready to shift the balance forever. The kind of surprise that would turn their own words into the sharpest knives against themselves. If this ever happened to you, say same in the comments. Tomorrow, they wouldn't just meet their daughter. They'd meet the woman who finally learned how to fight back, with elegance. And with proof. The night before that so-called family meeting, I sat cross-legged on my living room floor, laptop glowing against the dim light of a single lamp. My fiancé, Mark, leaned against the couch, watching me with quiet concern. "You don't owe them anything, Claire," he said, voice steady, like he already knew the battle I was preparing to walk into. "I know," I whispered, fingers tapping the keys, pulling up files, bank statements, photos, memories locked in digital folders. "But this isn't about owing them. This is about ending the story they've told about me my whole life. The story where I was the failure. The wasted investment. The daughter who would never amount to anything." I remembered my dad's words when I chose business school over joining his small repair shop. "You're wasting time. Women don't build empires, they marry them." Those words still clung to my ribs like broken glass. But here I was, 27, with a growing marketing startup that had landed 3 major contracts in less than 2 years. I hadn't just built something, I had built freedom. The Tesla was only the visible symbol. The real treasure was the independence they never believed I deserved. As midnight crept closer, I rehearsed what tomorrow would look like. I saw their faces when I walked into the room they'd set aside for judgment. I heard the barbed questions: "Who gave you the money? Which man helped you? You must be hiding something." And I planned my silence. Not anger, not shouting. Silence, followed by evidence so clean they couldn't twist it. Mark reached for my hand. "What if they still don't respect you?" I looked at him, my voice colder than I intended. "Then respect isn't what I came for. I came to end their grip on me." I closed my laptop, the plan crystallized in my chest. Tomorrow, I wouldn't just defend myself. I'd rewrite the script they forced me into since birth. The silence they gave me on my engagement night would be the last silence I'd ever allow. Tomorrow, I'd speak with proof. And let them choke on it. The morning of the family meeting felt colder than it should have. September sun poured through my blinds, but my body carried a chill that no blanket could chase away. I dressed deliberately, a navy blazer over a white silk blouse, hair pulled back tight, shoes polished. Not flashy, not casual, professional. The version of me they never wanted to see, but the one I had become. Driving the Tesla to my parents' house was surreal. Every turn of the wheel felt like a countdown. My chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, but underneath, my pulse drummed faster than the engine itself. When I arrived, the house looked the same: cream bricks, black shutters, the lawn manicured within an inch of its life. But stepping out of the car, I felt taller, like I no longer belonged to the girl who once begged for their approval. Inside, the smell of coffee and furniture polish hit me first. My mother sat on the couch with her arms crossed, her lips pressed thin. My father stood by the window, his posture sharp, like a general ready to interrogate a soldier. "So," he started, voice carrying that old authority. "You've been hiding money. Flashing cars on the internet. Where did it come from?" I didn't answer. Instead, I slid a folder from my bag and placed it neatly on the coffee table. The silence stretched so long I could hear the faint tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. "What's this?" my mother finally asked, suspicion laced in every syllable. "Proof," I said calmly. My voice didn't shake this time. "Contracts. Revenue. My company's growth. Every dollar accounted for." My father's brow furrowed as he flipped through the documents. His jaw tightened when he saw the signatures, the client names, the profits lined in black and white. "You're telling me you did this?" he muttered, disbelief dripping like venom. "Yes," I replied simply. "No man. No family handouts. Just me." The room turned heavy, their silence louder than their insults had ever been. And in that silence, I realized, this was no longer their interrogation. It was my revelation. My father's fingers twitched on the papers as if the ink might burn him. My mother leaned forward, her eyes narrowing, searching for cracks in my calm. "This doesn't make sense," she said, voice sharp. "You don't have the discipline. Someone must be behind this. No woman your age could manage clients like these." There it was, the old dagger. Not disbelief in the documents, but disbelief in me. I inhaled slowly, letting the silence coil around us before answering. "That's the story you've always told about me. That I was reckless, incapable, second best. But you never stopped to see me work while you were too busy dismissing me." Mark's words echoed in my mind from the night before, end their story. So I did. I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and projected a series of photos onto their sleek living room TV. My office filled with employees, client meetings where I stood at the head of the table, campaign results displayed in graphs, even the ribbon cutting from my company's one-year anniversary. "Still think someone else did this?" I asked quietly. For a moment, my mother's mouth opened, but no words came. My father finally spoke, his voice low and bitter. "So you bought that car to rub our noses in it?" I met his glare head-on. "No. I bought that car because I earned it. The fact that it bothers you says more about you than me." The room felt like a battlefield. My father gripping his pride like a shield, my mother scrambling for excuses, and me, standing taller with every breath. I hadn't come to beg for recognition. I came to show them what they tried to bury couldn't be buried at all. Their silence was no longer power, it was evidence of defeat. And yet, beneath their fury, I caught a flicker of something else in their eyes. Not respect, not pride. Something rawer. Fear. Because for the first time, they realized they couldn't control me. And that terrified them more than my success ever could. My father set the folder down with a deliberate thud, his knuckles whitening against the wood. My mother shifted in her seat, her pearl earrings catching the light as she finally found her voice. "You think this car, this company, makes you one of us," she sneered. "Money doesn't erase your place in this family." I almost laughed, because what place? The empty chair at every birthday dinner? The unanswered calls when I needed help with rent? The silence on my engagement night? I leaned forward, my hands folded neatly in my lap. "No, Mom. Money doesn't erase anything. But it reveals truths. And the truth is, you only see me now because of what I own, not who I am." The words hung heavy in the air. My father's eyes narrowed. "Don't get clever with us, Claire. Family is family. And family looks out for each other. Which means if you have resources, you share them." There it was. The trap. Not pride in my success, not apology for the years of dismissal. Just expectation, greed disguised as blood ties. I tilted my head, letting a small, knowing smile form. Share? You mean after you ignored my milestones, mocked my choices, and called me a failure? You mean now I'm suddenly good enough to carry the family name because I can buy things you want to brag about? My mother's face flushed crimson. Careful how you speak to us. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. No, careful how you speak to me. Because tomorrow isn't about me proving myself anymore. Tomorrow is about what you reveal when you can't control me. The clock chimed in the hall. I rose slowly, gathering the folder back into my bag. Their silence followed me like a shadow. Before walking out, I turned once more. You asked where the money came from. Now you know. But tomorrow, at the surprise I've prepared, you'll see where my strength really comes from. Their eyes flickered with confusion, suspicion, even dread. And for the first time in my life, I left that house with their fear heavier than my shame. That night, I barely slept. Not because of nerves, but because of clarity. The surprise I had prepared wasn't just about the Tesla or the contracts, it was about rewriting the narrative in a way they couldn't ignore, even if they tried. By morning, my plan was in motion. Mark and I drove together, his hand resting steady on the console. The closer we got to the downtown hotel, the tighter my chest felt, not from fear, but anticipation. I had invited them to what they thought was a private sit-down. What they didn't know was that it was actually my company's investor brunch, a gathering where my team, clients, and new partners were celebrating the milestone of hitting our first $1 million in revenue. When my parents walked into the ballroom, their eyes widened. The chandeliers glowed golden, rows of suited investors chatted over coffee, and at the front of the room, a banner stretched wide, Monroe Strategies, building the future of marketing. My mother stiffened. What is this? She hissed under her breath. This, I said calmly, is where your daughter stands now. And where you chose not to stand beside her. They were ushered to reserved seats near the front. I could see my father's jaw clench, his pride trapped between storm and surrender. My mother looked like she'd swallowed glass, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for a way to shrink invisible. Then the MC called my name. I stepped onto the stage, lights warming my skin, microphone in hand. My voice carried steady, practiced, but inside my chest, I felt years of pain sharpening into power. 2 years ago, I was told I'd never build anything of my own. Today, I stand before you, not just with proof of what I built, but with a team that believed when others doubted, clients who trusted when others mocked. I glanced at my parents. Their faces were pale, caught between disbelief and the unbearable truth. And this, I finished, is just the beginning. The applause rose like thunder. And my parents sat frozen, exposed in the storm they never saw coming. The applause echoed like a wave crashing through the ballroom, rising and rolling until it drowned out every cruel word my parents had ever spoken over me. For the first time, I didn't shrink under the sound of their silence, I stood taller because of it. I stepped down from the stage to shaking hands, clinking glasses, and congratulatory smiles. My team surrounded me, proud and beaming. Investors nodded with respect. Clients spoke of future deals. And there, at the center of it all, sat my parents, silent, cornered, their pride stripped away under the weight of undeniable truth. My mother leaned toward me when I passed, her voice a sharp whisper, "You embarrassed us. You made us look small." I stopped, turned just enough so she could see the steel in my eyes. "No. I made you look exactly as you are. You ignored me when I needed you. And now the world sees I never needed you to begin with." My father's fists tightened on the armrests. "Family should stay private," he muttered, but his voice wavered, cracking at the edges. I crouched slightly so they alone could hear me. "You made my life public humiliation every chance you got. Tonight, I simply returned the mirror." I didn't wait for their reply. Instead, I walked toward Mark, who stood near the exit, pride glowing in his eyes. He slipped his hand into mine, steady as always. "Ready?" he asked softly. I nodded. More than ever. As we left the ballroom, I caught one last glimpse of my parents. My father sat rigid, his jaw locked, but his eyes betrayed something I had never seen before, not dominance, not mockery. Fear. My mother looked smaller than I ever remembered, clutching her pearls like they might anchor her from collapsing. For the first time, I realized they weren't larger-than-life villains. They were just people, weak, flawed, desperate to control what they couldn't. And their power over me had shattered completely. But I wasn't finished. Because the true surprise, the one that would end this story on my terms, was still waiting for them tomorrow. The next morning, the air felt lighter, like the weight of years had already lifted. But the final act still waited. My parents thought the investor brunch was the climax. They were wrong. The real ending was meant to be quiet, poetic, undeniable. I had invited them to my office, my own headquarters. The glass building rose against the sky, my company's name etched across the entrance in silver letters. When they arrived, their eyes darted upward, the reflection of the logo staring back at them like a truth they couldn't run from. Inside, I guided them past rows of employees who greeted me warmly, respectfully. I wanted my parents to see what true family looked like, the kind that is chosen, not assigned by blood. We reached the conference room. On the table sat a single envelope. My father eyed it suspiciously. "What's this?" "Another performance." I slid it toward them. "It's my will," I said plainly. Their faces drained of color. "Your will," my mother repeated, almost choking on the words. "Yes. A legal declaration that not a single cent of what I build will ever pass through your hands. Everything goes to my future children, to Mark, and to a foundation I've created for young women entrepreneurs who were told they'd never make it." The silence that followed was suffocating. My father's pride collapsed in on itself. My mother's lips trembled but produced no sound. I leaned forward, my voice steady, calm. "You ignored my engagement. You dismissed my worth. You only came running when money appeared. Now, you'll watch me rise knowing you'll never touch what I've built. That's my revenge, not cruelty, not shouting. Just truth written in ink." Mark squeezed my hand under the table. My parents stared at the envelope as though it were a coffin sealing their control forever. I stood, walking them to the door. No anger left in my chest, no need for another word. They entered my office as my judges. They left as strangers. And for the first time in my life, I finally felt free.